Brewed History, just a woman and her coffee. So today, this is what we're talking about. I found this weird little tidbit of history that I had to share. It was the Great Emu History of 1930 in Australia. Yes, there's actually a couple of books written about it. There's even one written from the emu's point of view. Um, it's okay. So let's we got to back it up before 1930. So World War I. World War I has ended, and the veterans from World War One, they were given lands. Now, what they didn't know when they were given these lands is apparently in this part of Australia where these lands were given, it was kind of the crappy part. It was pretty barren, and they were soldiers. They had never farmed before, and they were told that if they were to grow wheat, that they were promised subsidies by the government. But they didn't have any success at it because they didn't know how to farm. There was also other extenuating circumstances. There was a drought, falling prices, and also, this is, 1920s. We're working up to the Great Depression. So now, also at the same time that all this is going on, that these veterans are trying to make a go at farming, Italian immigrants are also coming to Australia, and they know how to farm. Well, they know how to make wine. So they go to the Riverina area, and they buy up failing farms, and they have a success in growing wine. I know absolutely nothing about growing wine. Not growing wine, but growing grapes and making wine. And I don't know anything about growing wheat. But apparently, in which I do, you have to know some things. I know you can't just plant things in the ground and, water. There's a little finesse to it. So anyway, so the Prime Minister of Australia, he knows that there are three things that they need to increase development. Okay, he knows that they need labor, they need money, and they need the markets. They need to be able to access all the markets. So the British migrants, okay, are encouraged to move from Great Britain to Australia. Now, they were also given farms, but the same problem. The people that were migrating, these were people that, they lived in the city, lived in London. They didn't know how to farm. So it was the same problem. They didn't know how to farm. They didn't know what they were doing. And plus, they were a little misinformed about the status and the state of the land that they would be moving to and be given. So also at this time, you have 212,000 British migrants that leave these farms that they were given, and they go to the cities because they couldn't do anything with them. They didn't know how. My understanding of the land and from the pictures I've seen, it's a pretty barren land. Like, it's not easy. This is not going to be an easy land to farm. So then 1929, the Depression. The U.S. the U.S. needs money, and so 1930, the U.S. Wants all the money owed by the British government from World War One. So the Brits in turn tell Australia, you owe us, and you're going to have to help us pay the millions that we borrowed. And Australia has no money. And so then no money, there's all these new immigrants that they have just gotten, the British have promised all this stuff. Australia has promised all this stuff to these migrants. We're going to give you this. So then they get there and there's nothing. And it's a Great Depression. So these turn into these places where they were wanting them to farm. They turn into shanty towns because there's just no money. Now, as we're working our way up to 1930, is where we're at. Depression. People are living in shanty towns. Farmers are farming. They don't know how to farm. The world is kind of in a financial chaos at this point. And this is all unbeknownst to the emu. Now, the emu is the second largest bird. It is 5 foot tall, 200 pounds, and it runs 30 miles per hour. They mate for life. If you haven't ever watched videos of emus, I suggest you do because they're hilarious. They're a little spazzy. They're a little spazzy creature. And so all of this is going on. You got the emus. The emus are migrating. Now remember, there is also a drought going on at this time. So the emus are migrating. They're trying to find water. And along the way to find water, they look and they notice there's wheat growing. All the farmers that were able to get the wheat growing. And wheat just happens to be their most favorite meal. Now, it's not a small migration. There are 20 20,000 emus migrating. It's called a mob. They are migrating. And so because they are migrating and they see these 20,000 emus, see these wheat farms, they, like a plague of emus, they descend upon, and thus begins the Great Emu War. So the farmers, they try shooting them, but emus they're kind of hard to hit. There's even bounties. Like the Australian government was like offering so much money if you forever however many beaks you could bring in. Okay, so but there just wasn't. I mean, it's depression. There wasn't money for food. There wasn't money for bullets. Okay, so even though they had these bounties on the beaks, people were like, "Yeah, a fat lot of good that does is we don't have bullets to kill them." So the government says, "Okay, we're going to send three guys. One of them is the major, Meredith, and two subordinates, and a cameraman. And we're going to give them 10,000 rounds and some machine guns." And the government sees this as a publicity opportunity. So that's why they sent the cameraman. So the first day when they go in is November 1st, 1932. And it's a clear victory for the emus. So they're like, okay, they didn't know. They didn't know how hard it was going to be. So they set up an ambush. Okay. And they set up an ambush. They wait. These emus come in and they killed 12 emus. Now the emus realize that something is up. So they notice that they start having lookouts. Okay. While the other ones are eating and drinking, they have lookouts posted. Okay. Emus aren't stupid. And so they can't sneak up on them anymore. They don't know what to do. So then they decide, we're going to put the guns on our trucks and we're going to chase after the emus and we're just going to spray the machine gun, spray bullets and massacre the emus. That does not work. Bad aim. It's bumpy roads. It's not a well thought out idea. So by mid-November, I think about right around the 8th, 9th, there have been, now mind you, they only have 10,000 bullets because it is a depression and those bullets are counted. Okay. So 2,500 rounds have been spent, with only, okay, so this is where the numbers get a little wonky. 50 to 500 emus are dead. To me, that's quite a range of probability. 50 to 500. Anyway, so that ends the operation because obviously it's not working. Now, again, a few days go by after Major Meredith and his two subordinates, after they stop and kind of realize, like, we don't know what we're doing. The farmers are like, please, you have to help us. The government says, okay, we'll do it. And so the second tour of the Great Emu War begins. When all was said and done, 10,000 rounds were spent. And less than 1,000 emus were killed out of 20,000. So it was about a 10% success rate. So the emus are clearly the victor of the Great Emu War. It's funny. It's just a funny, the emus won. So if you're curious about that, more, factual rather than, just what I gave you, I've got a link to some books, that'll be in the description, like, follow, all those things. But anyway, my name is Michelle, and cups up to the emus.